Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are joining from. Myself, I'm Deepthi Goguri. Merry Christmas, one and all, and happy holidays. I'm really excited to be presenting for Festive Tech Calendar 2021. Welcome, everybody. And today I'm going to present on the topic DBA in the cloud. First of all, before beginning, I would like to thank Richard and Gregor for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be presenting for Festive Tech Calendar 2021. A little bit about me. I'm a database administrator with several years of experience in managing SQL Server and databases. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and Microsoft certified solution expert. I did my master's in computer technology at Eastern Illinois University, and I do blog for dbanuggets.com. That's my website. And I'm also an organizer for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion User Group, and also Microsoft Data and AI South Florida User Group, and also I do volunteering for Women in Technology user group as well. Apart from my daily work and the community work, I love doing arts and crafts. Basically, I love DIY stuff, making things with my own hands, and then that gives me um, real big satisfaction to me. So if you would like to contact me later for my upcoming session, at DBA Nuggets is my user ID for Twitter. You can contact me over there, or you can also contact me on LinkedIn. Deepthi Goguri is my name. You can connect me over there. It would be an honor to get in touch with you. 6 months ago, one day, Monday, not so fun day to me. So what happened that day? I'm a DBA in one of the corporate offices, and there were a couple of other DBAs as well. So one Monday, I'm so happy. I'm ready to work with my cup of coffee in the morning. I'm so used to work with the regular DBA staff. So there were several jobs that were failing. I'm looking into it, and we have this meeting with the subject line says, "What is the future of our company?" So future of our company in the upcoming months. So we do not have much of the information about the meeting. I went to the meeting as is with other DBAs, and there were also higher management people in the meeting, and we were waiting for what they have to tell us. So they told us that they wanted to migrate half of the servers to the cloud in the coming 6 months. The moment I heard about that, I was in this situation. I was completely in a panic mode. You might be asking why you are in a panic mode. That's coming in the 6 months. Why you have to be in a panic mode in the first place? I was in that phase because I have no idea what Azure is. I do not know anything about Azure. And never had a plan of even started learning about Azure because I'm so used to being on-prem DBA. And the main reason that I was in a panic mode, not because we are moving into the Azure, but my all of my panic was that I will lose my job because I do not know anything about Azure. So in the upcoming 6 months, I thought they might be hiring somebody else to do their migrations to Azure because I do not know anything about Azure. That's the first point. And the second point is, what if they move to Azure? Will I lose my job? That was my second question. What if I lose my job? Do I have to do I have to search for another job, or do I completely have to change my career into a different field? Because everybody were saying that by that time, back in back 6 months ago, many people were saying once you move to the Azure, you might be losing your job as a DBA because Microsoft doesn't need any more DBAs. Your company doesn't need any more DBAs because um, once you move to Azure, most of the things are taken care by Microsoft. So I believe that. So I went and searched online, Googled many websites. Half of them said like, "Hey, forget about DBA job, go and find the other job. It's better to change your career itself." And some of the articles said that no need to panic, even though you move to the Azure, DBAs are still going to need to the company because they are the ones who have to migrate. But even after migrating to Azure, DBAs are still needed. But both of those articles, right? The one which says losing job and the ones which says to keep go ahead and go ahead and trust that you will still have a job. They do not have proper resources backing up their um, thing, what they are saying. So I was worried couple of weeks, definitely. I did not tell anybody in the office because I do not want them to know that I do not know anything about Asia. So I did not tell them. But I was in a panic mode for several weeks, trying to figure out what I have to do. But then realized, why should I even panic? Let me go ahead and start learning Azure, and then let me figure out by myself, because I'm a on-prem DBA. By the time I start learning Azure, I will come to know if the job responsibilities that I'm doing right now are still needed if I move to the Azure. I can find out by myself. That's how I started learning Azure. That's how I started my Azure journey. Um, and by the time I started, and then I started learning couple of the things. I'm not an expert. I'm just starting my journey, and I'm slowly learning. Again, it's a continuously learning process. It takes time, at least couple of months to get with the flow of the Azure technology. But then I realized that yes, as a DBA, we are still going to be needed. So that's what I have learned. I thought, why not put this as a presentation together so that there might be other on-prem DBAs out there who might be in the same panic mode like I was in 6 months ago. So I thought, let's put this thing together so that they will not have to worry about if they will be losing their jobs. No, we are still going to be needed as a DBA on the cloud, but we need to learn more. A couple of the things we have to learn because we are completely moving into a different environment. So, as an overview in this session, we are going to see um, deployment options we have in the Azure. Again, this is a beginner level session of for the on-prem DBAs, as well as the developers can learn of what things we will be doing once we move to Azure. So we are going to see the deployment options in Azure and what are the cloud DBA responsibilities once we move to the Azure, purchasing tiers, compute tiers, and what are the security options we have, and how to demo, how to create a virtual machine, and how to create our Azure SQL database, how to create the private link to secure your databases on Azure. And those kind of things we are going to see in the demo. And we are also going to talk a little bit about role based access control and tools to migration, the tools you need for the migration, and also a couple of the resources that you can go ahead and get started your own Azure journey. So, all the on prem DBAs out there, get ready to become a cloud DBA. So, what are the cloud DBA roles and responsibilities? Roles are definitely going to expand, so we should be ready to um, learn new things because Azure is a completely new environment. So definitely the learning curve, we need to learn more things, and roles are going to expand. But wait, Microsoft is going to take care of everything, correct? You may have this question, but not everything. There are certain responsibilities that Microsoft is going to take care of, like the patching, upgrades of the database, Azure SQL database, because it is versionless and you do not have to upgrade it. Behind the scenes, Microsoft is going to take care of that. Backups, right? The backups are going to take care by Microsoft. Anyway, in my case, even when we are on prem, we used to give away we used to um, buy the third party tools. There are third party tools who take care of the backups for us. So that is taken care by Microsoft. Patching is a tedious task. Those kind of things are taken care by Microsoft. But the existing responsibilities, you are still going to need them. New skills, as I told you, we are still going to learn the new skills, the way that we operate in Azure, um, the way that we add things and the secure the databases on Azure is different. So we are going to learn about the private links and the new new things that we have to learn to be as a cloud DBA on Azure. So as a beginning, let's talk about the deployment options we have in Azure. So we have infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. Under the infrastructure as a service, we have SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. Under the platform as a service, we have SQL Managed Instance and Azure SQL Database. Now let's go ahead and talk about each of these deployment options in the coming slide. The first, on the left, SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine is similar to the SQL Server on your own virtual machine. But what is the difference between both of them? Here, the SQL Server is um, deployed on the Azure infrastructure. But what is the difference between both of them? Like, what is the advantage of having our SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine? Um, there are automated backups that are taken care by the Microsoft, and the security patches are taken care by the Microsoft. And also, if you have older versions of SQL Server on-prem SQL Server, if you move your SQL servers, those older versions of SQL Server to Azure Virtual Machine, you are going to get the extended security updates for your older versions of SQL Server. But if you are on-prem, like SQL Server 2008, um, there are no there is no support for those older versions. And you can deploy a SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine in two ways. You can manually go ahead and do it, as well as you can use the um, images to install SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. These images are the pre-installed packages of the SQL Server version as well as the Windows version, so that you can go ahead and choose which versions. There are different combinations you can go ahead and choose. With couple of clicks, you can go ahead and create Azure Virtual Machine and SQL Server on it automatically with few clicks. And mm, by using the images, you will get infrastructure as a service extension, which will basically um, give you certain capabilities that you can use when you are SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine. And when you see SQL Managed Instance, like if you want to go ahead and move to Azure very quickly without making any modifications to your applications, the immediate solution, right? The immediate moving without changing anything will be to move to the SQL managed instance. Here, you do not have to worry about the operating system. Microsoft is going to take care of the operating system, um, but you can completely take care and utilize the instance level capabilities and features. If you are using SQL Server on Azure Virtual Machine, you are going to have the full control of operating system as well as um, instance level features as well. But here in SQL Managed Instance, you are going to give away the control of the operating system to the Microsoft and then take care of all the features like you can modify and use all of the features, instance level features like SQL Agent, database mail, link services, service broker, etc. If you are using Azure SQL database, like if you're building a new cloud application, brand new cloud application, and you immediately wanted to build a new database without having to worry about buying the hardware for your database, Azure SQL database will save a lot of money because all you get is a database, and you will not have to worry about the instance features or the operating system where it is being hosted. But you can still use the database level features like query store and other features as well. But if you are using Azure SQL database, it is always in the full recovery model. You cannot change the recovery model because Microsoft is going to be responsible for the service level agreement and the availability of the database. So for that availability, database have to be in the full recovery model. And there is high SLA, which is 99.995% SLA, um, which is highly available. And And we are going to talk about the Azure SQL database in the coming slides. Let's do some of the feature comparison. We are not talking about each and every comparison here, but let's talk about um, the main comparisons of Azure SQL database versus Azure SQL managed instance. The change data capture is not there in Azure SQL database, excuse me, but it's there in Azure SQL managed instance. Common language runtime is not available in Azure SQL database, but it's there in SQL managed instance. Cross database or three-part name queries like database name dot schema name dot table name is not available in Azure SQL database because all you get is a database, but it's there in managed instance. The cross database transactions uh, is not there in Azure SQL database, but you can do that by using Elastic queries, something known as Elastic queries. And database mail, right? Database mail, as it, all you get is a database and not an instance. Database mail resource governor is not available in Azure SQL database, but the automatic tuning stuff is especially there in Azure SQL database. Automatic tuning of automatic plan correction, and automatic index tuning, where it will give you a report of unused indexes, where you can go ahead and make sure you are dropping all of those, but be careful while enabling this option. And automatic plan correction is a query store feature where it will go ahead and continuously monitor your execution plans and force and enforce the execution plans based upon um, based upon the monitoring. It will automatically monitor the regression between the queries with the query plans, and it will go ahead and force the last good plan automatically for you. That is only available in Azure SQL database, and it's not available in managed instance. SQL Server Agent is not available in Azure SQL database because again, it's a database only option. But how do you create the jobs? You can run the jobs by creating the tasks using PowerShell. You can do that. So what are my responsibilities as a cloud DBA? The first thing that I placed here is a cost optimization. If you are on-prem and if you optimize the queries, if you performance tune the queries, and if you save resources, as they already bought the resources, they already bought the hardware and everything, you might not be, everybody might not recognize you so quick. But if you are on Azure and if you are doing the same performance tune, that directly affects how much of resources the queries are using. And as you tune, the resources that might take the queries to run might be lower. That which means that you can also decrease the tires. You can um, scale down the service tiers that you are trying to use, which will directly save a lot of money, and that will also make you recognizable by the higher management very quickly as a DBA. And because it is directly related to money. If you tune, if you are consuming only some resources, you can scale down easily. You can scale up and scale down based upon your needs. So it is a direct, direct relation to money. So if you tune your queries, that will optimize your cost as well. And when we talk about the databases, monitoring the performance of the database, setting up the alerts, fixing any outages, even though if you are on Azure, it's nothing like you will not have any outages. The application might have any outage, and you should be available for fixing any outages related to databases if you have any. And automating the task. Automation is very important, um, and especially for the databases, if you are using Azure SQL databases, you can create those tasks, running any uh, to run any jobs, those kind of things. And if you wanted to migrate the on-prem databases to Azure, you are the ones who have to know how much it might cost, to move to the Azure. And it is so important to know each of these service tiers and the purchasing models that we have on Azure, so that you can go ahead and use the tools that are helpful for the migrations and estimate how much it might cost and help for the migrations, because you are the ones who will be migrating all of those servers to Azure. And once moved to the Azure, you need to know how to optimize the cost. And it's all about optimization and tuning, those kind of things. But we are going to leave some of the repetitive tasks to Microsoft, like upgrades, Windows upgrades, patches, SQL Server patches, backups, because Microsoft is going to take care of automated backups, and security at some point, because um, somehow, because it's completely in Azure, um, you have different levels of security, all the way starting from the subscription, resources, resource group resources, database, logins, users, different levels of security. So you're still going to be needed. Um, Even as an outline, Microsoft is going to take care of that security. You are still going to require to create those linked private links and those kind of things. And automatic tuning, um, as though you have the automatic tuning for the indexes and automatic plan correction, you're still going to focus on what is the report that is given for the index tuning, or those indexes need to be dropped, because sometimes you might not know, you might not run certain queries. You still need those queries and indexes, but you might be only running certain times. So um, you need to make sure uh, you are still having the focus on those things as well. Talk to me about the cost, because cost, anything that you touch in Azure have a cost associated with it. Every service that you use, it is so important to know about the cost. So there are two purchasing models that we have. One is old model, which is DTU model, which is data database transaction per unit, which is bundle of resources combinedly together, which is compute, storage, and IO combinedly together. Which is like, for example, if you choose 5 DTU, there is no way that you can go ahead in that 5 DTU. You can say, hey, I wanted to use only some of the IO and more memory. You cannot divide that. And this is the oldest model. When they introduced the Azure SQL database, they have this ODTU model for the first time. And we have three basic tiers in it: basic, standard, and premium. As you go from the basic, standard to the higher premium version, the cost and fee, the cost and the fastness also increases. But the recommended model is VCore model, where you can completely choose the compute and storage separately. We have three purchasing tiers in it: general purpose, business critical, and hyperscale, which we are going to talk about in the coming slide. Um, by you, if you use vCore model, right, you have Azure Hybrid benefit, um, where you can use and gain up till 40% of the discounts. Um, if you're on-prem, if you're having on-prem SQL Server licenses, you can trade off once you move to the Azure and get those um, uh, discount benefits. The same goes with the reserve capacity as well. If you can pay ahead of time for the upcoming 1 to 3 years for that resources, you can also get some discount on it. Now, if you are under the vCore model, and if you wanted to move to the SQL managed instance very quickly, the only purchasing model that you can use is vCore model. You cannot choose DTU model for the managed instance. But if you wanted to move to the Azure SQL database, you can choose vCore or DTU model. Again, for the complete differences between the DTU purchasing tiers, you can go ahead and see the Microsoft Docs down below. Let's talk about the different service tiers that are available, especially under the vCore model. There are general purpose, business critical, and hyperscale. When it comes to the general purpose, it is for the general business purposes, and it is a lowest budget model. And all we get is a primary, and we do not have readily available secondaries here. Now, if you wanted to do any failover to the secondary, it takes a little bit amount of time when compared with the business critical to build the secondary standby. And especially under the general purpose, we have serverless and provision um, compute tiers, which we are going to see in the coming slide. And under the general purpose, it handles up till 80 vCores, and the database size can be up till 4 terabytes. And when comes to the business critical, right, it is especially for the OLTP systems, um, where you have readily available secondaries, inbuilt high availability, um, where you can transfer the workloads of the reporting queries to the secondaries, and it is it is helpful for the reporting workloads as well. And there is very less low latency when compared with the general purpose. So because it have additional features, because it has that those readily available secondaries here in business critical, the cost is little bit higher than the general purpose, and it can handle up till 128 vCores. And also the database size can be up till 4 terabytes. But if your database size is growing, if you wanted to scale up in the size of the database, the options you have for the Azure SQL, Azure SQL database is Hyperscale. It is only for the single Azure SQL database only, and it can store up till 100 terabytes of space. Again, there is in the Hyperscale, there is inbuilt inbuilt technique where um, the data of the Azure SQL database is saved in the different cache layers, where it will take very negligible time to restore the database point in time, even though the database is large. And there are four readable replicas readily available here, and it can handle up to 80 vCores. 80 vCores. Again, for the complete list of differences between these three compute tiers, please follow the Microsoft Doc down below. So, especially under the general purpose, we have um, two more compute tiers: provision and serverless. Provision is for the application where you always have the traffic coming to the database. In that case, you cannot predict the workload, how many users are connecting exact point in time. In that case, you are going to use the provision under the general purpose. These are the fixed resources that you have that you can choose. Once you choose these fixed resources, you cannot you you have to pay for those fixed resources even at that point in time you are using those resources or not, because you have fixed resources. But that's not the case with the serverless. Serverless option like this um, compute tier option is especially for the application where you can predict the workload. Hey, I will have the workload especially during this time. Let's say, let's take a sample of the application like the timesheet application, where the users are being connected only from Friday till Monday. The rest of the day is from Tuesday till Thursday. You can go ahead and pause the database if you know that there will not be any workload during that time. You can go ahead and pause the database. So what will happen is once you pause the database, you will be only paying for the storage and not for the resources. That way you can save a lot of money, and it will be charged only per second basis. The resources will be charged only per second basis, and you will be setting up the minimum and maximum number of vCores that you would like to use for this serverless option. So no matter if the users are connecting, you will be scaling up and down only between these minimum and maximum number of vCores that you choose. It saves a lot of money using the serverless option. Let's talk a little bit about the network security. In network security, when you are going ahead and creating the resources, you have these options under the network security. Allow access to Azure services, firewall rules, virtual rules, and private link. As you go from the left side to the right side, the security increases, the safety also increases. But the setup of the network security is easy from on the left side. As you go to the right side, it becomes a little bit tough, but it also becomes more secure. Allow access to Azure services is the least secure ones, but it is very easy to set up. Once you choose this option, you are saying that anything in the Azure, anything in the Azure can connect. But outside of Azure, like if you have an on-prem server, SQL server, you cannot connect uh, once you choose the allow access to Azure services. And once you connect to the database, you are always connected using public IP address, meaning you'll use the internet to connect um, to the database. And in the DNS hierarchy, um, DNS hierarchy is also shown as is also public. It shows the public IP addresses. But when it comes to the firewall rules, um, just like you create the firewall rules on your on-prem SQL server, you'll go ahead and create the firewall rules, exception to the firewall rules to connect to the Azure SQL Server on each of the machine, each of the um, uh, on each of the services that you wanted to connect. So it is secure with the firewall, and services with added firewall rules can connect, like I said, and it will also allow because allow access to Azure services will not allow to connect the on-prem servers, but here by using the firewall rules, as you create the firewall rules on the on-prem servers as well, you can allow on-prem connections. And again, even here it will be using the public IP address, and DNS hierarchy will also, and the region control ring, those will still show the public IP address. Virtual network rules are a little bit more secure than the firewall rules and little bit less secure than the private link. Here, you create the private IP address of the Azure virtual machine, and any resource in that virtual network can access the Azure SQL. So you'll be basically creating the virtual network role over there, and by using the by you will be connecting different virtual networks by using the different type of technologies, like apply virtual network technologies to connect on-prem servers, but it is still pointing out to the public endpoint. It is not using the private endpoint. It is still using the public endpoint. And again, the DNS hierarchy and the region controlling is still pointing out to the public IP address. And the most secure ones is the private link, which is the securest ones, because once you create the private link, the internet connection will be completely shut down, um, so that you will be using the private IP address to connect to the Azure SQL database. It will block all the public access and the private IP address. So you will be creating one private link within the network that is connect within the virtual network that is connecting to the Azure SQL database, which will again use the only the private IP address. And when you see the DNS hierarchy, that will only shows the private endpoint. Again, for the complete differences of the network security, please follow the link down below. So let's first go ahead and create our virtual network, and then go ahead and create our Azure SQL database, and then let's go ahead and create the private link and all of that. Once you open up the portal.azure.com, in the search bar, go ahead and search for the virtual networks. Go ahead and create it. Click on create. So for any resource that you wanted to create in Azure, you need to provide the subscription and resource group. Any resource that you create, you have to place that in resource group under the resource group. you can create multiple resource group, but each and every resource that you create should be under the um, under the resource group. Give the name of the virtual network, and the region is very important because that will also depend upon the latencies. To for the faster response time, you need to make sure you are providing your current region where you are creating this. Go ahead and click on next. It will uh, it will ask you to provide the IP addresses. So give the address space. So based upon that, the address spaces that you choose, you can clearly see how many addresses that you can create underneath this particular um, virtual network. Here you can create 65,536 addresses for IPv4 address space. And you can go ahead and add the subnet. I'm adding the default subnet. Go ahead and click next, where it will provide the security like Bastion host, different types of security methods um, that is provided for the virtual network, and firewall, and then other security options you have. I'm just placing it as default. And if you would like to go ahead and tag, so for every resource that you create, you can go ahead and tag those resources. Just like if you go to the shopping mall and find a shirt or a dress where you have a tag attached to it with how much it costs. So these tags are similar way that you can go ahead and name it so that you can easily identify how much each of these resources cost later down the road. Go ahead and review everything and click on create, which will easily within couple of minutes it will go ahead and create your virtual network. Now go to resource to see your virtual network. Here I created my virtual network. Now let's go ahead and create virtual machine on this virtual network. Go ahead and search for virtual machine. Click on create. Again, for every resource that you create, you need to provide the subscription, resource group, virtual machine name, and the region that you wanted to create. Very important. And availability options. I'm just putting as is, and security type is standard. Now go ahead and choose the security type, which security type is standard, and go ahead and choose the image that you wanted to create. So I'm using Windows Server 2019 Data Center Gen 2, and then um, provide the size of it. So you can go ahead and choose an estimated amount that will cost you per month. You can choose. I wanted to go ahead and see all the sizes. So I have checked a couple of the sizes. I have chosen B2S, which will cost approximately $30.37. This is just for my demo. And then provide the administrator account, user, and then password, confirm password, and then public inbound ports. I have placed it as none. Go to the disk and provide what kind of disk you need. So I have placed them premium SSD, and then the defaults are set, and then give your virtual network. So where you want to create your virtual machine, you need to provide your virtual network name here, and then the subnet, right? You have chosen how many subnets, like how many addresses you need underneath the subnet, right? So you can go ahead and choose that as a default. Um, Public IP address. Again, it is by default. I put it as default. And then how do you want to connect to your virtual machine? I have given the HTTP and RTP, allow selected ports for the inbound ports, and then go ahead and review everything that you have chosen, and then click on create, which will take again a couple of minutes to create. Now go to resource, which this is our virtual machine. that have been created on our virtual network that we have created previously. Now, to connect to your virtual machine, go ahead and click on connect. Go ahead and choose RDP session. So, for every time you wanted to connect to your virtual machine by using RDP, you need to download the RDP file. Once you download it, it will go ahead and click on connect, which will take you to the credential window where you will provide the credentials while you the same credentials that you created while creating your virtual machine. Provide that and hit OK, where you can open up your virtual machine. So virtual machine is similar to a complete different Windows machine, but it's on in Azure infrastructure. So as we build the virtual network, and then we have created our virtual machine on the top of the virtual network. Let's go ahead and create our first SQL DB, Azure SQL DB. Go ahead and search for the Azure SQL. Once you open up, once you search for that, it will give you all of those deployment options. So go ahead and um, click on create. But then um, if you also wanted to create the virtual machine by using the images right side your screen, you can once you once you drop down the menu, you see different virtual images that you can go ahead and create your virtual machines. But here we are creating SQL database, so click on create, which will provide you the database name. So go ahead and provide the database name. But every time you create Azure SQL database, all you get is a database, right? You will not get any instance. So, but there should be something that should be available to connect to, like by using Management Studio, you should be able to connect to by using something, right? That is when you need the logical server that you need to create. Click on create new, where you will give you the server name, the virtual server name that you are creating, location, authentication method. Whenever you are creating Azure SQL database, you have to create, give the authentication. Always give the SQL admin login, SQL using SQL authentication. No matter even if you wanted to use the Azure Active Directory as well as the SQL authentication, even then you have to provide the SQL authentication login ID and password, and then go ahead and it will ask you want to use Elastic Pool. So all we are using is single database that we are creating. Elastic Pool is something where we'll go ahead and um, place multiple Azure SQL databases into a single pool where they can where the advantage is they will share the resources together. It will save lot of money. But here we are only creating one database, so I hit no. Compute and storage, go ahead and click on configure database to see what kind of service and compute tiers we have. Again, I'm choosing the least budget model, which is general purpose. Under the general purpose, we have more compute tiers. There is provision and serverless. So I would like to choose serverless, where I can go ahead and pause the database and go ahead and scale up and scale down and see how much it might how much it is estimate it is how much is the estimated cost per month, right side your screen. And remember, it will charge the resources per second basis. You'll save lot of money. And then in the auto pause delay, when do you want to um, pause the database, right? I would like to pause after 1 hour, which is by default, it is 1 hour. You can change the hours as well. So as you choose 1 hour, that means you are saying that once the database has been idle without any connections for 1 hour, then go ahead and pause the database. So I choose 1 hour. Go ahead and um, scale up and scale down the maximum size in GB. Would you like to make the database zone redundant? No, I would not like to. So I put no for now. Hit on apply. And then it will ask what is the backup storage redundancy you want. Locally redundant backup storage is it will save the copies of the database backups on the primary locations. But if you choose the zone redundant, let's say I'm from Kentucky, I'm creating the database from here. It will not only save the backup copies on the primary location, but also at the different zones within the Kentucky. That's a zone redundant backup storage, and it will store asynchronously. Geo-redundant backup storage is that it will store the backups on the primary location. At the same time, geographically, it will be also storing at different geographical locations. So I choose locally redundant backup storage. Click on Next Networking. Um, the firewall rules. Do you want to add the current IP address? So do you want to add the local computer of yours to access the Azure SQL database? I do not want to, so I hit on no. Private endpoints, I do not want to create now. I will create it later. Now go ahead and choose the connection policies. I placed it as a default. Once you go to the security, Azure Defender for SQL is a service that has been recently added, where it will go ahead and check for any vulnerabilities and vulnerability. It will do the vulnerability assessments, and if there are any suspicious activities, you can also have an get get an alert for that. So for now, I am choosing no because it will cost money, 15 USD per server per month. It's not a free service. You have to pay for that. Once you go to the additional settings, you need to mention how do you want to restore the database. So do you want to get the data based from the backup, or do you want to just create the name of the database, or do you want to create the sample of the database, the AdventureWorks sample? You need to do that. So I'm hitting none to create just the name of the database, and then go ahead and provide the collation. The collation that you are seeing on the screen is the default collation. If you want to change the collation of the database, this is the right time, because later you cannot change the collation of the database. Maintenance window, I put it as a standard default, which is 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., where all the upgrades and then um, everything will be taken care, the maintenance during that window. Tags, again, you can give the tag if you wanted to create one, and then review and create everything that you have been chosen. Hit on create, which will take a couple of minutes to create the database. Once it is created, go to the resource, and that's the database, DBA Nuggets, the SQL database name. And right side your screen, you can go ahead and copy to the clipboard the server name, because that is the logical server name that you need to connect to your Azure SQL database. So I copied that, and then I connected to the I connected by using the server name, and then login ID and password, and hit on connect by using the virtual machine. Once I open it, it opens the database, uh, DBA Nuggets database that we have created, and you can also see the logins, but you cannot see the SQL agent. It looks just like the SQL Server instance that we have on-prem. But if you observe, there is no high availability folder here, or SQL Server agent here, like the other folders. Database mail you cannot see. Now that's how I connected to the database by using a virtual machine. Now let's talk about how allow access to Azure services and firewall rules in the network security works. Once I go to the SQL server, the virtual SQL server that we have created, underneath that, you have the SQL databases over here. So I'll go and click on the Blade firewalls and virtual networks. And then I will allow Azure services and resources to access this server. That is the first low security option, low network security option. And also, I will add the I will also add the client IP address, the current client IP address, and then I'll go to the command prompt and I will try to connect to the server, NS lookup on the server, where it will clearly shows me uh, the control ring information and the address information over there. That is the public IP address where it is pointing to. It's the least secure thing. And if I try to go ahead and connect from the virtual machine and connect, go go and try to connect to the Azure SQL database by using the virtual machine, and by running this, select client net address from sysdm execute connections where session ID, it will give me the public IP address information from where I'm connecting to. It will give the address. Now let's talk about virtual network rules and private endpoint, which are a little bit secure than the firewall rules. Now once I select the no option, allow Azure services to access this server, no, and then delete the local IP address, adding up the local IP address, and then go ahead and do the NS lookup. It and then go ahead and do the NS lookup. It will still point out to the public IP address, the uh, will still access the public IP address and control ring information if you see. But underneath the private link, which is a very secure one, you can go ahead and create the private link to stop connecting using the public IP address. Go ahead and search for the private link and then go ahead and click on create private endpoint. Again, you need to provide the subscription, give the resource group name, and then give the name of the private endpoint that you wanted to create. I gave DBA Nuggets, PE, private endpoint, and the region again. And then go ahead under the resource, it will show up the Microsoft SQL servers. I'll go ahead and create that because we are creating the private endpoint on that. And then what is the resource? The server name, um, the logical server name that we have built, we have created that resource, and then target sub resource is SQL Server. And underneath the configuration, you need to provide the virtual network information as well and subnet information. And uh, if you would like to provide the private DNS integration, so what it does is to if I read it here, to connect privately with your private endpoint, you need a DNS record. So do you want to add the DNS record? So you can immediately add the DNS record here. I added it. Integrate with private DNS zone. I choose as yes. Now review everything and hit on create, which will take again a minute to create, and then go to the resource. Here we have created the private endpoint. Now our database is secure. Internet connectivity, it won't use the private IP address because internet connectivity is gone to connect to this particular database. Now, if I go and wanted to connect from my virtual machine, I will connect to virtual machine, download the RDP file again, use the credentials while I created the virtual machine, sorry, hit on OK, and then run the as we are connecting through private IP address right now. Once you connect and see, you will get the different IP address, the private IP address right now. It won't show the public IP address. If you go ahead and do the NS lookup after you enable the private link, it will clearly show you the test server, the logical server by using the private link. and the private IP address is shown. If you see there, let's talk about the role-based access control. So there are certain built-in roles available in Azure. So what they say is what can and cannot be done by in the to the resources. So there are certain roles which is the main ones are owner, contributor, and reader. Owner um, owner can do everything. He can read, modify, and assign. Contributor can read and modify, but they cannot assign. So if you are an owner and eh, if you wanted to make another person contributor of a resource group, you can you can go ahead and give them the contributor role where they can go ahead and read, modify, add the resources under the resource group, but they cannot assign another person. Reader can only read as it says, and the permissions were like hierarchical hierarchy way. Like if you are giving a person a owner permission, a owner permissions uh, to the resource group level, but you do not want that person to have access to the database underneath that resource group. That is not possible because you have given the owner permissions onto the resource group. So it will be hierarchy level. We need to it will be inherited. Now to see these roles, go to the access control IAM under the logical server, and then go ahead and try to add role assignment where you can see the different roles: owner, contributor, and reader. Now I wanted to add a person to the contributor. So I hit on contributor, hit next, and select the member. So I select one of the persons and then I hit select, where I can go ahead and click on next. So we are assigning access to user group or service principal here. And then I would like to provide um, the contributor role, especially to the scope of this particular logical server for that particular member. Review and then assign. So once I assign, underneath the contributor role, I can see my name as well as the Chris Green name as a contributor for this particular logical server. That's how we can give the role permissions. And again, we are not talking about each and every role. As an overview, we are going through all of these options that we have. And there is also intelligent performance available under the Azure SQL database. So once you go to the Azure SQL database, underneath the automatic tuning, once you select that, it will open up a blade where it shows the automatic plan forcing, which is a force plan. You can go ahead and turn that on, and automatic tuning of the indexes, where you can go ahead and turn on off for create index and drop index. So now we have seen in this session what are the roles as a on cloud DBA, and what are the deployment options, and what are the purchasing models we have, what are the service tiers, compute tiers that we have in Azure, and how to create the virtual network, virtual machine, Azure SQL database, and what are the RBAC roles we have, and how to give certain role to a person. And we have seen all of this. We have got an idea of how things on Azure work. But what are the tools that you need once you decide to go ahead and migrate your on-prem servers to Azure? There are certain tools that you can use, which are free, most of them, and some of them you need to pay for the service. Azure TCO is a Azure total cost of ownership calculator. If you type in Google to estimate to get the estimate of how much it will cost to move to Azure. And you might already know about the data migration assistant to check for any compatibility issues that you have before moving to the higher versions of SQL Server. or to move to the Azure. But along with that, there is something known as Query Commander for Azure SQL. We'll also use the data migration assistant to go ahead and analyze your workload based upon it will go ahead and analyze the workload of your databases, and based upon your workload, it it will give you the suggestions. As a starting point, it will give you the suggestions of which service tier and compute tier will be best for you, what are the deployment option will be best for you. And there is also SQL Azure Migration Wizard that you can use. And the last service is Azure Database Migration Service, which you will be paying some money for using this service, which which also you can use for the migration. The key takeaways are, um, as we started in the beginning, right? I panicked for a couple of weeks before starting my journey into Azure. I started learning. While I was learning, um, I I learned that we are still going to be needed as a DBA even once you move to Azure. We are still going to be taking care of the databases, the performance tuning stuff, taking care of security within the update databases, um, and uh, we are taking care of all of the other responsibilities, the cost optimization that we have to do. So DBAs are going to be here; they are not going anywhere. And even though if you are not a DBA or developer, or if you are directly from other if you are working on um, other technologies as well, if you wanted to start learning Azure, this is the right time, because in the coming months, mm, all the many of the companies are planning to move to the cloud technologies. So learning as one of the cloud technologies, sure, it is easy to learn. You do not have to know the coding like we have seen here. There are other deployment options, automated deployment options we have like Terraform, Bicep, which we did not cover here because this is a basic session today. But there are also other deployment options where you can deploy automatically by using those technologies. But as a basic, if you can start your journey with the first step, like if you see everything as an overview from the top, it looks overwhelming because there are many services out there, um, that we have to learn. But if you start from basic, one step at a time, if you take if you start now and then learn the basics and take those um, fundamental level certifications and then start from here, maybe in the coming months you can go ahead and learn more in detail about the technologies that we have, services that we have in Azure. Anyone can get started. And if you are using Azure SQL database, you have intelligent performance available, which saves a lot of money and also um, less maintenance. The right side things are mainly the companies are more focused on, because they are looking for the technologies where they can save a lot of money. And I have provided all the resources in my website. And if you can scan the QR code by using your phone, it will directly take you to my website, where I provided all of the resources that you need to start your Azure journey. There is also um, there is also virtual training days that are going on. I provided the link over there as well, where you can take the certifications for free from Microsoft, and then go ahead. By the time you complete your training, you'll get a discount coupon code, 100% discount coupon code, meaning you can go ahead and take your certifications for free, which is amazing, right? Um, so do not forget to go ahead and um, look into that blog post where I provided you all the links that you need to start your journey. And I followed Microsoft Docs, and then Azure SQL Fundamentals um, video series on YouTube, which are created by um, Bob Ward and Anna Hoffman. Those are very wonderful resources which are available for free. So I followed those resources, and Microsoft Docs I followed to prepare this presentation. And again, All the best to the future cloud DBAs. I would like to thank you so much for attending this session today. And I would like to thank Richard and Gregor one more time for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present for Festive Tech Calendar 2021. Again, if you would like to contact me, at DBA Nuggets is my user ID, dbanuggets.com is my website, and I would like to wish you one and all a happy Christmas and happy holidays. Thank you so much.